we are. Maybe first thing I tell you why I travel. I will tell you about Tamera, but more important, I want to talk about the option to really start a new planetary and responsible culture. And I feel this time there's a lot of urgency for this planet and for humanity. Actually, more for humanity. I always feel, well, the planet will do what it does, but for humanity it is urgent to change the direction. And when I travel wherever I can, I want to spark this possibility for manifesting a new culture between people and nature, and between people in the invisible world. To have something close, what I really want that you can, tangible, I want to talk about Tamera, and I would just start with giving you some pictures of Tamera, that you have some visuals of what I'm talking about.
This is going to take about 30 seconds.
Perfect, I need this 30 seconds. It's a film that was created by a young filmmaker living in Tamera, and it was a crowdfunding project, so we're going to break off in the middle of it. Yeah, I'll give you a sign because we're only going to watch the first 3 minutes, and it's really the quickest tour you can imagine through Tamera, I think. It's like 2.5 minutes, and you get an impression where you are at in this workshop for a new culture. Yeah. So when he says, please support that, this crowdfunding is already done. It is a pledge for film, because he wants to make a full-on movie about Tamera, and therefore the first 2.5 minutes are only covering what he wants to cover. It's like a table of content. Yeah, and we're going to use that.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Ludwig Schramm and I'm a documentary filmmaker. And for the next film I want to make, I need your support. Right now I'm at a place called Tamera, Healing Biotope 1. This project was founded 1978 in Germany and 17 years later moved to Portugal. Today, 170 people live and work on an area of 330 acres. Tamera is a unique and incredibly complex project, researching a system change in all important areas of life, locally and globally. Facing the dead end of our current global culture, Tamera is trying to create a credible model for a new society that can be replicated in many parts of the world. There would be so much to say about it, but I'd rather take you on a really quick tour. Let's go! This is one of the many lakes of Tamera's water retention landscape, showing us that there is no water scarcity at all, but abundance. Tamera has already achieved water autonomy. Close to the lakes, one can explore the so-called edible landscape with its permaculture gardens. And the permaculture beds are being sown with our own reserved seeds. This is one module of the solar village, where the research on how to achieve energy autonomy is being done. There's an increasing regional network for the exchange of local products, like natural medicine, pottery and sculptures, second-hand textiles and upcycling products. This is the Children's Center that includes a kindergarten and a preschool. Tamera is as well working on opening an official school. The building is supposed to stand right here in near future. For many years, communication and cooperation with animals happening in Tamera, for example with horses. Also with these beautiful beings, the pigs, who are the best co-workers for working the ground, as well as with rats and snails, who are usually being considered as vermin. In the core of Tamera's research stands the issue of love, sexuality, partnership and community. Therefore, the Love School has been founded. Art in so many levels of life is really important in Tamera. Now we are at the political ashram, the place of the thinking school that serves mental training for dedicated peace workers. There is not such a thing like an official religion in Tamera, but a very intensive spiritual research. This stone circle, for example, serves as a natural cathedral. All the knowledge and also all the questions that are being generated here in Tamera want to be shared with the world. That's the task of Tamera's peace education. And last but not least, the Institute for Global Peace Work, Tamera Center for Global Networking and Media Activities. Okay, that was it, and it was quite something, wasn't it? And I haven't even shown everything. Tamera needs support.
As I said, table of content, and I talked some about how this project came to life, and why we ended up with such a complex attempt to kind of cover all areas of life. Many times we are asked, like, so why don't you do one thing properly? Ecologically, technology. If you want to experiment in social design, do that. But the very core of it is that we want to create a society model which is more complex than our society model, which is encompassing capitalism and goes beyond. Because that is the nature of evolution. What comes next is more complex. Not the survival of the fittest or whatever it is called in English, but the lasting sustainability of the more complex and comprehensive. And therefore we try to cover in Tamera all existential areas of life and create a fully non-violent solution for it. And the idea is that if we manage to create such a model in Tamera, for example, or anywhere else in the world, that this will create a morphogenetic field that will actually give a chance to other people anywhere, whether they are the opinion that Tamera is good or not, doesn't matter. A new cultural field will be accessible to everybody. And the question that started the project was, what can we do for this planet and humanity? It came from a very politically active and left Marxist background, and in a way, in the 70s in Germany, there was a lot of upheaval against the state and the system. And it was like blaming the system, as most political movements still do, blaming the system for the fault. And I mean, there was a lot to blame, and there still is. And there is some insight growing in the political movement, seeded at that time, and that is, there will be no other system if we do not create another human being. There is no meaning to demand different structures in society if we do not manage to create new structures within us as human beings. Actually, I myself, I'm still going very much with Marx, that the societal being shapes our consciousness. But that's only half of the story, and this is why Marx did not succeed. It was a beautiful, beautiful utopia, but he did not include how to get to Marxism, to a classless society and culture from where we are. There was no transformational path from where we are to such an ideal society. So one of the core visionaries of Tamera, Dieter Dunn, he wrote a book in the 70s, The Fear in Capitalism, where he analyzed the inner human psychological structure that generates such a society and such an economic system as the capitalism we're living in now. Yeah. Actually, at that time, he coined the sentence that any revolution without emancipation will be counter-revolution. That means any political upheaval, even if you manage to throw over the system without doing the proper work to really start the new, foster the new, germinate the new, will end up in the same thing, just turned around. Maybe I put a little personal story in this place, because I was, not in the 70s, later, I was very politically active when I was started 13, 14, 15. And as the nature of the thing is, when you start asking, what is wrong? What is wrong in this society? What is wrong in this culture? Something is not sitting right in me. And I believe every person has that question. Somewhere along the line, before we kind of start to numb down and don't feel it anymore, there's a very fundamental question towards society and culture and what is wrong with us as humans. So the nature of it is that, my nature was that it got more and more militant. I was more and more indignated by what I saw and what I understood about society. And so it was 2-3 years, and then I was ready to put on the black hood and bend down and grab the stone. And in a street riot in Berlin, I had this moment where a friend picked up a stone
It's the music behind it.
Picked up a phone, picked up a stone, and threw it, and actually it went under the helmet of a policeman, I don't know, and he fell back and lay on the street. And it was a moment where I just froze. I froze dead in the middle of this riot and was paralyzed with an insight. What am I doing here? I'm fighting a system while I, with my very being here, fighting, keep generating the same system. And of course that's a thought that is known, but for me it was a power of insight that really created a different reality in that moment. So the riot was going on, my friends were fighting, the police was running, and it was all like a stupid game in that moment for me. And that is basically when I turned from this purely political path and thought, what's going on with us as humans? I will go on a little bit with the story because it illustrates something that is still important today, I believe. And that is, from then on, I really concentrated on, I got into all kinds of circle of group dynamic, self-realization, meditation, you name it. Crystal work, consciousness work, and something there didn't sit right either. I felt there was something going on which was so much around belly, what is it called? There's a word in English as well. When you look only at your own belly, navel gazing, right?
Yeah, contemplating navel.
Navel gazing, and this did not feel right at all. And so I had my political heart. I knew that something needed to happen in consciousness and in me, myself, and in the people around me. And I was really happy when I found Tamera as a project which says it's the middle path. We do need to work deeply on our inner structures as human beings, and we need to generate a society which will foster this transformation, which will support this transformation. Without doing a deep and profound transformation work on our core structures, there will be no different society. Yeah. So in a way I gave a little story of why I was so happy when I found Tamera, because it was that middle path. And I'm still on that middle path. I try to be best I can. And yeah, so the idea of Tamera is to work both sides. The inner human structures and outside livelihood, water, food, energy, a complicit-free life as much as we can. That's kind of a brutal realization if you start opening your eyes of what the culture we're living in, how saturated it is with violence. It is really pretty much like we wear violence with our clothes, we walk on violence, we have light through violence, and it's a systemic, it's not even a flaw, it's a fucked up system all the way through, and something in it needs to be such a shift that it's not just better food or trash separation or whatever, more ecological that or more whatever that. It really needs a shift in the core consciousness of the human structure. And researching what that could be, we came very strongly into the area of love, sexuality, and community. The question of what do we have to change in the human structure, that we are not that crazy anymore, brought us into this research. Actually, it was in a way beautiful. In the beginning of the project, there was also the idea, wow, there's so much knowledge on this planet. People do know how to have sustainable energy. People do know how to treat water in the right way. There's enough food. Let's bring all this knowledge together in one place and make a holistic university. 30 years ago, that was still kind of spectacular. Now there are these holistic universities. And the trouble that was coming up with this holistic university and this idea was that there were specialists, mainly men, male specialists of this area, and this area. And the question was, can we bring it together in one life system, in one model? And the answer was, no, we can't. But the reason was not because the information did not fit together. It is not because the way that we could treat water, the way that we could treat the sacred, the way that we could treat our children, the way that we could grow our food will not fit together. It was because the people carrying that knowledge, how it could work, did not fit together. Because there was a very severe inability to enter real dialogue and co-creation. Yeah. Looking at that, it became clear that there is a deeply competitive structure that runs through all layers of our society and that runs through all layers of our consciousness. And looking for where are the places where we think we need to own, then the core structure of that is in the area where we fear the most that we lose something. And that is in love and sexuality. Before we got conditioned that we can buy ourselves safety through material goods and money, there was a very existential experience, again I believe and I hope in everyone, when we grew up with like, whatever, 12, 13, 14, 15, whenever it happened for you, there was nothing more interesting for most of us than the other sex. There was nothing more important than eros. And we knew that. But there were schools that didn't pay attention to that whatsoever. Instead, there was a society that told us, if you love somebody, put them in a box, let's call it marriage, and take care that this person stays with you. And this is so much against the very nature of love. And we have been instilled, and I don't mean we have been instilled as in the evil system that instilled us poor souls with bad values. No, it's us creating the system. So when I say the system, I mean us creating a system that is not working. Good, so there is waking up of eros. And the desire, with waking up of eros, there comes an incredible desire to explore. There's incredible curiosity. There is a drive. There's a drive inside for freedom, of wanting to know what the other is. Yeah. And usually these are the first places where we get cut down severely. I mean, by now we get cut down way before, but there is a cut when we turn into adolescent, when our sexuality awakens, where almost our sexuality being repressed happens at the same time as our dream that there's another life possible to start to dwindle away. Maybe with some of us it still stays something that we want to do and we do the right thing and get engaged or something, but the inner flame, the inner belief that really a totally different life is possible between people kind of dwindles away. And that is because eros is such an existential and central life force. And if it gets bent, if it gets encaged, if it gets put in the wrong vessels and forced, it is not thriving. And if it is not thriving, it is dying down. And with many of our, and I say eros now, there are other, I talk libido in general. Or maybe I put it this way, eros not just as sexual encounter and sexual attraction, and certainly not only between men and women, but eros as the attraction between a masculine and a feminine principle in the universe, highly illustrated through us being men and women, and wanting to strive for this reunion. But instead of learning about this reunion, we usually learn a solid story of separation, of being isolated, of a world that is out there, that is dangerous and not us. So, having said all this, we started a love school in Tamera because there is something that we need to learn with love, in love, about love, to change the fundamentals, foundations of our culture. I myself have a passion for a new economy, and oftentimes we look at the beauty of gift culture. Gifting, I mean, when we just turn around from what we need and what we want, and what we earn or where we profit to what we can give. What a beautiful thing. But if we, in our core areas of life, as in friendship, as in love, as in eros, keep thinking, what can we get, being run by a program of scarcity, we will not be able to create a gift economy. Because money is secondary. It comes way, way after our very primal need for true contact. Yeah. Now I'm talking a lot in the direction of the love school. And maybe I say something also about the development of our research in love and sexuality. As coming back from the 70s, oftentimes I say we, and I don't always mean we as in me as a person, because I'm 40 years old. And when I talk beginning of the project, I wasn't there. But by now I'm fully identified with the project, and therefore I say we when I speak about the beginning. So, just so that you don't get confused and wonder.
How old are you?
40. So, yeah. So, there was a big wave called the sexual revolution in the 60s and 70s, where in a way there was a first shattering of the sexual paradigm of our culture. And whatever you think about it, will not go history and not personal opinions of what has happened. I think it is pretty clear that it has not come through in a positive way. Now when I say free love and free sexuality in most circles, most likely not right now and here, but in most circles, it creates fear. It creates an association of a random fucking around. And what we mean with free sexuality and free love is freeing love and sexuality from all fear. And this is a deep and committed healing path. It is not sacrificing the depth for the breadth of the subject. It is a path where our basic conditioning that we need to own somebody, to love them, gets tackled. Where we relearn that loving is what we have to give and not what we want. And that is a deep path. This is a deep path. I also believe that so-called free sexuality and free love has left a lot of wounds, because it was brought forth as an ideology, as a new ideology. This is how you have to do it. Don't own your partner, have 2, 3, 4, and be free about it. But this was not a structure that we invented as well. I mean, we did way back. But it was 7,000 years of patriarchal culture kind of burned into ourselves. The fears around love and sexuality, about the most natural thing. I mean, the thing that we all come from. I mean, everybody in this room has come from the sexual joy, hopefully. Everybody has come from the sexual interaction of mama and papa. And we all have that in common through all cultures. And there's such a fear around this most sacred thing in our life that just saying, now we do it differently, will not work. It needs a deep work to overcome our fear of losing our beloved. In our culture, which is kind of crowded with alienation and animosity. Okay, maybe that sounds like hostility, but animosity. That is so crowded, there is a natural instinct of what we have, we will protect. If we find somebody who we love, where we can really open up to, and where we can be who we really are, or at least get towards that direction, we will protect it. Because our general culture is not supporting that. We are trained to wear masks which are not ourselves. So when we have this lucky moment of trusting somebody, just one person, we want to keep them. We want to make sure that this is ours. Not having learned about the nature of love or the principles, the functioning of love, we try to hold it. And we have been trained to do so. and it is impossible. The very desire to make this love last and the impulse from it to hold it does destroy it. Because love, free love, is absurd actually to say, because love is free in its nature. It is giving, it is expanding. So what we need to really create something like free love, or even let's just call it love, is a deep reprogramming of our core pattern in this area of life. Yeah. As I don't only want to talk about the issue of love and sexuality, because we learned that to create, you know this African saying, to raise one child in a healthy way, you need a whole village? To have one person free of fear in love and sexuality, you need a whole new life system. So I would also like to address the other areas of Tamera that we are talking about, but I would first like to open now for questions around our research in love and sexuality, if there are any. Kelly.
How can we water, nurture, grow this new kind of community, support this kind of love, practically on just a real community level, with these people that are sitting here? How can we start growing in that direction?
A few things. Like a very central Tamera approach is, before entering any kind of practice with it, enter the study of it, understanding the history and the much larger story of what has happened to our ability to love. How has it been spoiled, cut down? Because many times in these situations, when we come to fear, we kind of contract and totally identify and believe in that moment, this pain that is going on in me right now is going on only in me. That's the worst. Whereas broadening this image of like, this has been happening to humanity for thousands of years, and it has created a culture, helps you to not identify with your personal pain in it. And therefore we do a lot of studying the issue, the history of love, the broader image of it, also the implications that it has to all areas of life that we have in culture. Like what are the implications of a fearful possession in love to our economy? I mean, it's pretty blatant, but what is the implication? What is the implication of a person that cannot love in our nutrition, in how we grow our food? There is a direct connection, and we study that. That's one thing. The other thing is, when we come together in groups of practice, we give it, especially our research, of opening up the normal cultural structures for love and sexuality, we give it a very strong ethical direction.
Ethical.
Ethical. And that is truth, mutual support, and participation in the whole. And in a way, yeah, these are key guidelines, because there is such a, I mean, sexuality has been repressed. And when you say, okay, now forget that repression, you're allowed to do what you really want to do. I mean, if we start that, wherever we start that, there's a very big chance of chaos and mess and pain. And there is an incredible yearning to catch up on what was not allowed for you to happen, the real nature. And in that we do and do and do and do whatever. But what is central for us is that we are truthful in that process. And that is really important for the Love School, especially in Tamera, like after being a project that has gotten known about the research in free love and free sexuality. I cannot emphasize it enough that we say truth first. So you do not break away from a committed relationship to say like, oh, now I'm into free love. Agreements that you have with your partner or your partners are sacred. If you want to transform them, fine. If you want to re-examine them, fine. We support that. But not breaking them. Because a new culture that is healing for this earth can only be based on trust. And trust can only derive where there is truth. And to learn to trust the truth, you need a society, a group of people, a culture to be transparent. That people show what is really going on with themselves, that the deceit of each other finds an end. Only then can trust arise, and trust is the healing force for everybody, I believe. Yes, and as I said, our research in love and sexuality is directly related to creating a whole new life system. Because what I said in the beginning, you know, this middle path of process and creating a new society, when you enter the area of love and sexuality and you start researching there, you can process 20 lifetimes and just be around your fear and your pain. And this does not get us as planet, as humanity, as life on this planet anywhere. It is just, here you are again. Actually, this is why we have this third precede of responsible participation in the whole. Because whenever we get sucked into a process, which is just a downward spiral, which does not help anybody, you say, like, forget research on love and sexuality. Go out and help. That is love. Go out and fight for the survival of the last remains of nature and wildlife, or whatever. Yeah. The question was, what can we do to nurture that? For me, starting a practice in your circles of these very simple three guidelines is an amazing nurturing for a new culture. And if you take truth, mutual support, and responsible participation in the whole, if you take that serious all the way, you're right there. And your revolution, being part of a global revolution. Yeah. Good.
Can you say those three again? You said truth,
Truth, mutual support,
mutual support,
and responsible participation in the community, but we really say in the whole. Because many, many times we need to expand what is our community. And we as humans really have to do that now. To expand our community also beyond human.
Yeah.
That is urgently an awakening. Good. Are there more? Yes, please.
Yeah, what is, because responsible participation, I mean, my mind goes to so many places on what it is that you're responsive to. And I understand it's the whole, but like how do you, within the group, I guess that there's some part of that, but I don't know how that would look if it were to be, like, I understand how Tamera would be, but like if I took that on as an ideology, that's something that's like,
I hope I didn't say put it on as an ideology.
no, I know, but like, I guess that's what I'm doing, and that's why it's a little bit. But I'm just curious if you could say a little bit more about that.
Yes, sure. Okay, ready? I believe we live in a time where we awaken as humans to become planetary beings, where it is not only about what we feel, but what is going on with this earth, with all life on this earth. And sometimes when we take away the numbing filters, we can actually feel that. And this is painful, but I think it's very, very healthy in our development, because in the end, we will start to act in the right way according to life once we feel your pain and the pain of the tree out there, and furthermore, way, way there, as our own pain. Not in an intellectual concept, but to really feel it. And now this is the most extreme, full responsible participation in the whole of life. And many times when you ask me how do I put that into practice, it is even asking the question, of whether what I do is to the best of the whole. And this can, as I said, I mean, mutual support already is taking that in. Is it to the best for myself, or for the other, or for a community? And the solutions or the answers you can come up with, they are totally different depending on the situation. But I think in many times as a culture we don't even ask that question. And that is a trouble. And there's something in community where in our Western society we have learned a great deal about individuation, and rightly so, or in a really good way, in a very beautiful way. And I believe it is time to come back to some communal or tribal structures within us where it is not me first and then the rest, but the community first and then me. But not from a place of not being aware of me as a person and me as my highest cosmic and creative potential, but no, as a conscious choice to come together with other people to form what I would like best to call the communal messiah, the next level of life, where we are not separated, fearful individuals anymore, but become a new species. It was a little bit far away maybe from your question. Something good. Yeah.
Do kids go to the love school? And if so, what's that like? And if not, how are you all teaching your kids about sex? Or the sexuality and love that you do? How do you do that?
Well, first of all, kids, before they get disturbed by us, they are the perfect teachers in free love. I mean, if you, it's so funny if you have children and the first time first of course there's only mama, but then there's also some point in time there's also papa, yeah? And then they just turn away and go to somebody else. And you feel your whole reaction, like they run exactly with the same joy, with the same unreserved, oh, there you are, to somebody else. And it's so natural to them. And see the reaction? It is crazy. It is crazy how adults crave for the attention of children. Goody, 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 goody. It's like wanting attention from beings that are somewhere totally different. And rightly so. We want to bring them like, this is where we are very separated. You better tell me that you like me and I want to. So they are teachers in love. They are teachers in love. But that was probably not the main direction of your question.
But that was nice.
Yeah, it was about, so basically the most important thing is that when questions around eros naturally emerge, well, they're there all the time, yeah. But when they emerge towards sexuality, then there are people around that actually answer the questions. The questions that appear and emerge are loud. And if you do not disrupt that, there's a very natural way that eros finds its way. And kids, sometimes, this is the biggest blessing sometimes in Tamera, and seeing my daughter grow up there and her natural erotic grace, and just seeing her that she doesn't have a reason to be afraid as an erotic being. And this is amazing. I mean, she's just 15, 16, 17 years old, like fireworks of eros, and she doesn't need to hold it back. Because there are adults that give her an answer and that she can trust, that it will not be abused. So, that's the most important, that whenever the questions come, they find a resonance with adults. And either there are places where the adults actually know something, or the children start to learn, wow, our parents are still researching on what they don't know. And then, of course, there is like the more direct initiation. We have different levels of initiation, and it's a lot of it is not institutionalized. It is really, maybe I take it from my daughter. My daughter, there was a very beautiful ritual when she had her first menstruation, and it was a whole community event. and she was taken care of by the women, and there was a certain ceremony involving a horse, because that was her wish, and then she was led into the circle of adults, and actually then we danced. I had the first dance with her in the new womanhood. And all this, so this is, and then there was a question, that she came to the question, so okay, so now I'm bleeding, I'm maturing, and like, what is going on? And she actually, this was part of observing the healthy erotical unfolding, because she really took her time. I mean, I was way earlier out there than she was. And then she started to ask questions, what is it about? And I was blessed that she trusted me enough that quite a few of these questions came to me. But she had a very clear inner voice of like, yeah, I'm interested in that, but I'm not going there yet. And then she actually had a dream that she will have a dream about something, and this I forgot, I already tried to remember. So it wasn't an animal, it was something. She had a dream that when it is right for her to have her first time, she will dream about something spectacular, something specific, not spectacular, specific. And 4 months later she had that dream, and she told that dream, and then we looked, okay, so what is the setting? Do you know who it is? Because it doesn't need to be like, okay, we are lovers, and that must be it, because like, promises and whatever. Letters. Yeah, okay, I see you know. And we encourage a really free look and an intuitive look. Like, what is it really? What setting do I want? So maybe that's also good to say about freeing sexuality from fear. Our work with sexuality is zero technical. It is zero how to improve your orgasm or your sex life or your potency or any of this. What we try to do is create a surrounding where the natural knowledge, the inherent, immanent knowledge in us can be reawakened and can find its own timing, its own place. So in many places, learning about love and sexuality is unlearning our cultural conditioning with the ethical guidelines that I put out. Also, it is really important that children have time of exploring eros with each other in a protected space, not being disturbed by our strange moral ideas about eros. Yeah. It might be natural, but I know how my parents were kind of liberal, and they would allow me to do my little games and explorations. But still, I remember, like, how many taboos. I mean, you look into the face, at a certain age. At a certain age, you snuggle up to your mother, and your body starts to react, and you see this kind of like really ashamed face of your mother. And what you like note it down at is something is wrong with this feeling. Or the other way around, not mother, father, all the same. Yeah. Good. More to love and sexuality than I would. Yes. One question, because this can take us away, I know that. Are there people who say like, look, I really want to hear about ecology and want a good chunk of that? Thank you.
I'm interested in hierarchy. How is that addressed? We're here in a hierarchy now. You're in the center. We are now quietly listening. And you started that out by talking about the experts who had something to share, but they couldn't talk to each other.
I'm not only in the center,
so how
I'm
is
in the front.
So how is that addressed in your community?
Yeah. The first thing I would like to say about it is that I oftentimes like to regain the original meaning of words. And hierarchy means sacred order. Beautiful, huh? So what we mean with hierarchy mostly is abuse of power, right, from over others. So first of all, I hope that you don't feel that now, but it's true. I am here delivering, and well, to not justify but explain the situation. Well, first of all, for a circle, the small room was too small. We thought there would be more people than would fit in a circle. And then my experience with non-hierarchical experimentation in the political groups was that we kind of denied hierarchy. We denied that there was authority. There was hierarchy anyway. And there was a very dysfunctional takeover by people who had constructive and intelligent ideas, were quietened down, and people who were very loud against authorities and against this and against that, and now it's not consensus and we need to, had the strongest voice. So in a way, I left this experimentation of just saying there is no hierarchy. Let's play no hierarchy. And the response for me to create, to regain hierarchy as a sacred order is trust in authorities. And I believe our main fight against our struggle, our whole anti-authoritarian uprise inside. For example, when somebody is standing in front and telling us, a lot of that is because we did not have authorities that we could trust. We were basically wounded. We were fucked by our authorities, by our parents, by the school, all bullshit. And so the most important part for me is to re-establish that trust. Because hierarchy, as in sacred order, is that there are people who know this much in that area, that are developed in this, and there is a hierarchy where you can actually, that opens the channel to learn and to evolve. And if that is based on trust and not on dominion, this trust is actually the channel for you to learn. Mm-hmm. And so, and I believe actually because it got so perverted in culture, we are against it, while at the same time we are absolutely unwilling to take full responsibility for the whole, and we just love to have somebody on top. I mean, and if it's in a natural, in the alternative scene, it's not, it's a guru, for example. There's just this inner structure. So what we really try to work on in Tamera to overcome is this inner structure of wanting to have somebody that tells the way. But as much as we are with it. And because we felt that, actually, it's pretty funny, we had this in the, when I came, it was the end of it. I moved to Tamera and entered the project 17 years ago. And it was the end of a phase where there were a lot of very confronting and provocative social games. And for example, the hierarchy game, where you just said like a group of 20 people, and everybody had a go in naming their hierarchy. Who is first and who is second and so on. And you did not have to explain that, yes, he's first because he knows the most about ecology, or she is first because I find her the hottest, or whatever. You didn't name anything of it, you just put up your hierarchy. And this triggered so much. And what was important about it is transparency about it. Because imagine, I mean, you say like, I put it up and I say like, okay, hierarchy, and I am the first, and you second, third, and then the group actually gives a response and says, no, wait a second, actually, we feel a little different. And it's really amazing to see that who, in a natural hierarchy, has the trust of the most people. Because he or she, actually she or he, will have a central position in the community. Yeah, so in a way, we try to regain that sacred order through creating trust for authority. Part of that is in a structural, social structure sense, it is that positions are not solid. I mean, you get questioned in whatever facility you are teaching and speaking and giving and becoming an authority. Yeah, and the other part is that I think our relation to authorities is also very wounded because we are not allowed usually to tell them what we think about them, to mirror them, as we say in Tamera. So very fundamental for our culture is that we mirror each other. And it is actually, it's tricky because in the last years I took more and more responsibility in Tamera, so I rose more and more in the hierarchy, and I noticed I get less and less mirrors. And it's a real decision of a leader to say, I want mirrors. I put myself out there to get them. Yeah, and that is in a way our safety net. So that it's not a stagnant hierarchy based on power over others. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Good. There were more questions. Somewhere in the back, still there? Yeah.
I have a quick question. Are there still agreements of marriage within your community, or is it something that collectively you're just steering away from?
There are agreements. There are not much, but starting now, ceremonies for the path of partnership. Yeah, and there are marriages, but they are really for legal issues only. So official marriages were only for that. And ceremonies, actually, that is something that interests me a lot. How do we create ceremonies for partnership, lasting and deepening partnership in a new culture? And it's actually very powerful. And actually now on this journey, I got inspired that, okay, now it is time to really find a ceremony for a common path of partnership with a woman that I've been in love with and walking a path towards partnership for the last 15 years. So, and then you find agreements, whatever. And there are agreements, there are also other agreements of all kinds of agreements. The main point with the agreements is that it's not between two people. These agreements and the ceremony, as in most indigenous cultures anyway, are a question for the community. I did not say anything about that at all yet. And a lot of what I said plays into that, because a very fundamental shift, or the most fundamental of us to become this new evolutionary species, is that we leave our private life and go into communal life. And that means that what I do is not my business alone. And it isn't anyway. It's an illusion that it could be on this planet. But we make that a conscious choice. And so the things that I do, even in the most intimate areas of my life, my love life, my sexual life, my children, oh wow, big taboo, to speak into somebody's education. I mean, education. Or people bring up their children, you tell them, well, you shouldn't do it this way. Like, whoa, what? My children.
Right.
And to deprivatize these areas of life is, in a way, yeah, the core of creating a new culture for us. The question? What was the question?
Whether there were still agreements of marriage within your
Yeah, okay, so the agreements of lovers saying we are on this path, the big point of it is that it's not only between them, it will be the whole community. And a huge measurement for a relationship is actually what good does it do to the whole. There's this beautiful rule in Damadur, fairly big community in Italy, and they say, you are lovers, you are a couple, as long as this love between you generates more energy for the whole community than it takes from the whole community. And there will be phases where it will take attention, because healing love is through painful phases. And you have to face a lot of shit, actually. And the community will support you in that. But if this is continuously just producing energy sucking, then that's not enough. Actually, it's not enough anyway, but then the community will also say, we do not support this path of partnership.
And then what? And then what? He says, we do not support it. Then what does that mean?
Well, I mean, get away!
Get away!
Now! And actually, many times this will be a measure, at least. Well, no, not. What are you laughing? They've been in Tamera a lot. So, it will be measured, because a lot of the pain that we have in a relationship, fighting each other or triggering each other, cannot be solved between these two people. So get away from each other, give each other some space, try to see each other again. I mean, when you are fighting each other, when you are like, oh, I'm so in pain because you blah, 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 it's not about the other person, and it's certainly not about love anymore. So creating space is actually a responsibility of the community. But that does not mean separation. Anyway, in a community that is committed to researching love and freeing it from fear, it is essential that your main marriage is to the community and the project, the ideas, the visions that you have in common. Because if you are married solidly to that community, this is a chance that you get this fear of losing somebody that we existentially think we need, can slowly heal away. So actually, even when I say like, okay, get away from each other, it is not about separation. It is about giving space again and then look, what does this couple need? Yeah. And then there are a million measures of like, whatever.
So there's this book called What You Think of Me Is None of My Business, right? That book title. And I'm guessing that I'd like for you to talk about the downsides of what you think of, you know, if we don't like what you're doing, we get to tell you. I can imagine lots of upsides to that, but I want you to talk about the downsides. You're married to the community rather than to...
The downsides of people
being in your business. We get to tell you how you should...
Well, that's a downside. That's not what it's meant. We tell you what you should. No,
Is that what you said about that? We don't like the way you're raising your kids. We got to tell you that because, you know.
Yes,
we got to tell you that.
yeah. But I didn't mean to say it this way.
Okay.
Remember, second point, mutual support. So when we tell that to each other, the base for that is that we support each other. And therefore it is not, don't do that with your children. I mean, I said it maybe a little bit drastically because it's like it's a castle of privacy that you're not allowed to tell me what I do with my children. And sometimes we are not always just gentle with each other. So we do give also very strict mirrors. And you might really say, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. But this is only, we can only be as strict with each other as the trust is deep. And therefore, mirroring each other, if it does not come from a place of love or compassion, or at least interest, authentic interest, don't mirror. So, me telling you, blah, blah, do it this way and that way, without me having an interest in improving how you do it, is not worth anything. And this is not what we encourage at all. And that is also not the process. If you give over your private life to a community, this is not what you get back. Sometimes it might feel like that. But actually to that mechanism, there is no downside. Life, through more and more feedback loops, to bring it from a totally different area, life is growing along like this, an increasing complexity. And complexity, a big part of that in biological systems is more and more feedback loops. And us not telling each other truthfully who we are and what we think of each other is like, down culture. And that is individual and as a collective.
On that point.
Ah. Good. Let me, yes. Heard you.
We're gonna wrap up.
Yes. So, feedback or a culture where we can trust that what people will tell us is to our good is getting very essential and existential when we come to the core wounds of our soul. Because when we touch those, all of a sudden the people we just trusted a minute ago, and they tell us, well, maybe this relationship, not as I said, a goal partner, maybe this relationship is not really healthy for you now. When we come to this point of loss and we are ready to fight, we have all different ideas of what the community, how the community controls us. So all of that is coming up. So a community that wants to heal the collective wound of love needs to be very strong in trusting each other and in learning that what we tell each other is to the best knowledge and to the best of you and to the best of the whole. Yeah. Good, and maybe we take a break with that?
Yeah, let's break for 10 minutes.